Call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Yes. Well, good evening. Have you here this evening, and those of you who are watching by the remote, we welcome you here. Those of you who braved it, going out on the streets, be careful when you head back home because you're out there. But we want to go forward with, I don't think we had any public comments, papers passed in. So before we go on, we actually like to have a presentation this evening from our high school science teacher, Colin Skurlock, at this moment. The stage is yours.
Some notable things that I, participated in from this conference. There's a really awesome keynote speaker from Carmen Chavez. She is a educator for America. Classrooms, you got to play with some drums.
It's always interesting what you're going to learn sometimes in school, but we actually have a couple past Blue Ridge graduates that are working for Country Companies Insurance with the farmers with insurance, and they actually, one of the students is actually out in the field, flying the drones above the fields, checking out the damages and things. So it's kind of really neat to see how they've taken their education and furthered it on, and they're using it for their life. Exemplary nights, and we do appreciate all the hard work and effort that goes on throughout the district administration team with their team professionals. And we have 3 individuals this evening. One cannot make it, that we want to recognize for your service. From the Schneider Elementary Building, we have Stephanie. Come on up. Blue Ridge Intermediate Junior High School, we have Sam Barton, who's not able to be here. And then we have from the Blue Ridge High School, Sarah Yeagle. If you'd come forward, please. And take your picture and plaster it all over Facebook. Thank you. And we want to recognize exemplary actions from our students as well, who brought attention to superintendent's monthly. Burnett. Eighth grade is Addison Hinthorn. I don't think she's, no. Seventh grade, we have Chloe Shreves. From the 6th grade, we have Gavin O. We have Olivia Meyer. Fourth grade, we have Alyssa Greider. 3rd grade, not able, I don't think it's here, is Carly Beebe. 2nd grade, we have Elena Dean. 1st grade, we have Opal Bateman. All right. And from kindergarten, we have Oakland Jones. Thank you. All right. Let's get in the all right. You're welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, or you're welcome to leave at this moment. Be safe on your travels home, please. All right, we're going to move forward with the communications part this evening.
We had 2 FOIA requests. Those were both taken care of in a timely fashion. Smart Procure is one that gives us a FOIA request very frequently. This time it was for personnel information, nothing personnel, but just personnel. So that was given to Smart Procure, and then you each received a spam marketing email. I just listed it there just so we could make sure that we knew that it was addressed by me.
All right, we have no committee reports this evening.
Correct?
And moving on to administrative reports.
Okay, so that's me first. For my report, I highlighted the fact that we did some reunification setup drills. Each of our buildings took part in that on 3 separate days. We went to 3 separate locations, and we do have some additional pieces that will be done in the near future. We have 3 locations. We've used Trinity, Victory, and Mansfield United Methodist Church. And since each building went to 1 location, we would like for all 3 buildings to know all 3 locations intimately, because you never know which place you're going to get assigned to if a crisis would happen. So coming up next week, we are going to be visiting those places. We'll take our secretarial staff, our administrators, SRO, Paige Trimble and myself, and our nurses, and we'll get to see all 3 of those locations and how the traffic flow has been determined for everybody. The next thing that was highlighted in there was our Illinois school report card that was released recently. We do have one of our buildings that is a targeted designation, and that targeted designation means that we have some areas for improvement. And we already have many things underway at the intermediate and junior high school, such as our iReady program, such as our MTSS structure that's being worked on. And Mr. Huddleston and Paige Trimble have worked very hard for an event that they are hosting at their building tomorrow night to talk about IAR, iReady, and how we can possibly, the title include I'm confused, but they'll be talking about how to improve home-to-school communication. Mr. Huddleston has a very deep passion for increasing academics, and that's been very evident in his work so far. And I think we have over 100 people that are already RSVP'd between adults and students. Yeah, wow, yeah, it's awesome. Okay, and I lost my packet real quick, so sorry. Okay, that was it for my superintendent report. We do have, we talked a little about the school report card there. There was a letter that went home that you've been able to see talking about that designation. And if you'd like, I can go ahead to the levy presentation. Does that work?
Sure.
Okay. All right, so our levy presentation for 2022, this is our tentative tax levy presentation this month. It'll come back to you again next month for approval. And one of the goals that the board has given me is to make sure that I'm explaining school finance as much as possible, and so this is our opportunity to do so. School funding components were comprised of federal, local, and state dollars that come into our 9 different buckets that we use in school finance. Federal money, most of that is through our title grants. You hear about those quite a bit. Our IDEA grants that cover special education. And then our ESSER money that we are receiving due to the COVID pandemic. ESSER 1, 2, and 3 brought in quite a bit of money for us and continues to do so. State money, most of what you hear about state money is our evidence-based funding. That's our more recent, our newer formula for state aid. We also get reimbursement for transportation monies that we spend, special education, driver's education, and so on. For Blue Ridge, we rely most heavily, significantly heavily, on our local funding, and that's done through the tax levy. So you can see right there in that picture, 73% of our Blue Ridge dollars come from local funding. That's through our tax levy. Federal funding, the things that we are spending with those federal monies for the title grants, that's funding our title teacher salaries and benefits, our paraprofessionals in the title department, also professional development for supplies for title students, some ELA and math professional development and coaching, and then some technology and social emotional learning workshops and training. A lot of our ESSER money that was right when the pandemic started, we could use it all the way up through 2022, but it was given to us back in 2020. A lot of that was our initial spending on technology, jetpacks, tech upgrades, cleaning supplies. Remember the day of the polycarbonate shields and the PPE? All of that was funded by ESSER 1. ESSER 2, we can use those monies through next fall of 2023. That funded our summer school for 21 and 22. Significant HVAC work at the intermediate and junior high school. We installed fresh air units on the roof to support the other HVAC that we had right there, and we did some repairs to the existing units. ESSER 3 is still up and running. That will go through actually the fall of '24. So you're going to see that's going to pick up the tab now for kindergarten jumpstart and also for our upcoming summer school of '23 and '24. It also has paid for Mrs. Mary Diener, our interim assistant principal for a few years, and some curriculum updates as well as Google licensing. Our state funding, we talked about evidence-based funding. That's our state funding model that prioritizes equitable funding for all Illinois districts. And so the state does a formula, and they look at our size of our enrollment and our specific student needs, and they calculate how much money they think we need to be equitable. And so for us, that means a total of about $888,000, and that's taken into our education fund. We also get state funding for things like transportation, special education, driver's education, and pre-K. Our local funding, that's from our tax levy, based upon our equalized assessed valuation, or you hear the term called EAV, of all the property that's within our 212 square mile footprint for Blue Ridge. We are very fortunate to have some rich farmland. The calculation for EAV for farmland was changed about 7 years ago. It slowed down our growth just a little bit, but it ensured that we would have consistent growth. And they said that would be the case for 10 years, starting back in 2015. So we're still appreciating that. And that local funding is deposited into all of our funds other than capital projects. And that's used for remaining expenses such as salaries, benefits, our purchase services, supplies, and capital expenditures. Our fund balances need to be shown now, according to state law, when we do a levy presentation. So on the left, you can see the names and the numbers of all the funds that we have. Those are our 9 funds that you use in all school finance. The balance at the end of the fiscal year. If you remember when we talked about our report in July, that some of our tax money had not come in before the close of the June 30, 2022 fiscal year. And so you'll see in many of the categories a very large jump. So in the education fund, now that taxes have come in, this is like the district's richest time of year right now because that tax money's come in. So the education fund is, I would say, full. Operations and maintenance, you see that went up. Bond and interest, that went up significantly. The bond payments are not made on a monthly basis, but a semi-annual basis. In fact, that $953,000 is no longer appropriate because you signed some bills for tonight and 2/3 of that is gone for the bond payment. Transportation went up, Social Security and IMRF went up, capital projects, that went down. If you wonder why that is, the tax money doesn't go into capital projects, and we just finished our paying for the transportation department, so you'll see that balance went down. Working cash went up because we fund it through the levy. For the taxes, tort went down a little bit. That's heavily up front in the fiscal year, you pay your insurance payments out of that. So that takes a big hit at the beginning of the year. And health, life, safety, that went up a little bit. Next, you can see the trend for our EAV. We said that is increasing at a steady rate, and so that shows you the last 10 years of increase. We are estimating, I work with the county clerks at this time of year, and between the 3 county clerks, they're estimating just under a 5.5% increase over our last EAV. That's our fall estimate, that's what they call it. Over the last 5 years, we've had an estimated or an average EAV for 3.9% increase, and our 10-year average was also 3.9% of an increase. Tax levy proceeds, those go into, as we said, all the 9 funds except for capital projects, but it also gives us some money for special education and leasing. Our leasing covers our copy machines and things like that. And then the bond and interest portion of our tax levy, we don't actually fill that out. The county clerk does that for us, I guess, to make sure that we don't make any mistakes and everything's covered. So that part they do for us. I wanted to remind everybody that we did some bond restructuring in 2020, started by Susan Wilson, and that was because we had very low interest rates at the time, so we refinanced the 2012 bonds for a savings to the district over $500,000. And then since the rates remained very low, we did a refinancing of the 2014 bonds and at the same time issued working cash bonds. So that savings went into the district's working cash fund, and that's where the cost was paid for the transportation department. And no district indebtedness was increased in that process, nor was the length of our indebtedness increased. So it was really taking advantage of the low interest rates at the time. If you'd like to look at the bond and interest tax rate trend data, you can see that back in 2013, there was a low amount of indebtedness, and then from 2014 on, had some little dips in there, but you can see that we are on a trend going down. So that's saying that our district indebtedness is going in the correct direction. And the overall tax rate trend data down at the bottom in the blue, and the blue numbers right above, that's showing you the bond and interest tax rate alone. So for 2022, our tentative levy says that 0.4665 will be spent to pay back our bond and interest. And then the red bars and the red numbers up on top, that's what they call the operating tax rate. And then if you would put those two together, so for example, in the far right column, if you would add the red 4.7438 to the blue 0.4665, that would get the overall tax rate for 2022. So you can see that we're slightly going down, and that's a good situation for all taxpayers. So here's a look at the last 3 years. Levy year 20, if you go across from left to right, you can see the operating tax rate is dropping down a little bit. The bond and interest tax rate is also dropping down, so of course then our overall tax rate is dropping down. So last year, 5.2598. This year anticipated, this is not finalizing it today, but anticipated is 5.2103. And I think that's it for me. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Yes, so I have asked the principals when they come up tonight to kind of give a state of the building address to kind of let you know where we are. We are in a post-pandemic situation where we have some pretty significant needs for our students in our classrooms, and we have a set of principals who are spending a considerable amount of time doing the right thing and handling student situations and student concerns in the right way. Instead of just in and out getting things done quickly, they're spending a lot of time having conversations with other staff members and teams, trying to make the right decisions, and their workload is pretty heavy right now. So I've asked them over the next month to keep track of the 60-plus hour weeks that they have. I just thought it would be important for the board to see a realistic picture of what we're asking our administrators to do. So thank you for doing so tonight.
All right. Yeah, I could talk a little bit about kind of our first quarter of the year. It's been extremely busy on a variety of fronts. Obviously, behavior, we continue to see increases in behaviors that are coming in, and so obviously when we're helping with that, it does take away time from some of the other tasks that we have day in and day out. And so, we're trying to find ways to manage that. And a lot of the ways that we do that is just by finding time after school to work on a variety of things like evaluations and planning and prepping for meetings and so on. But you know what, it has to be done. And so that's what we do. And we just want to make sure our schools are running in a very high, at a high rate. And we're just doing as much as we can to make sure things are going well. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more than that, but I do want to talk a little bit about my board report. So we've got a few things on here that I just wanted to touch base and thank some people for some of the great work that they've been doing. Number one, we had our senior citizens and grandparent Thanksgiving dinner yesterday. Was that yesterday? Tuesday? I mean, that's where we're at. Yeah. So it was absolutely unbelievable. We haven't done that, I think, in 3 years. We had over 107 parents or grandparents and senior citizens come to our K through 3 luncheon. It was wonderful to see the entire gym just filled with people eating, having a great time with their loved ones, and it was just really a cool event to see. I wanted to thank, our entire staff. Mrs. Weiler's here tonight. She was helping, and Miss Tanya and Miss Stephanie and Miss Mary. It is truly a huge event with so many people having their hands in it. And they did a phenomenal job in making that happen. So I'm very thankful to them, or for them, for providing that opportunity for all of our kids and our families. We even had several grandparents who either made verbal comments or wrote, a thank you letter even that day to share just how thankful they were in the work that we put into it. And they were just happy to be there. So that's awesome to hear. Got to put a plug in for our December concert. That's going to be upcoming here on December 6th. Once again, Mrs. Weiler will be behind the scenes there, putting it all together. Lots of instruments, dancing, decorations, and more. So that'll be on December 6th at the high school old gym, the Moore Gym. So hope to see everyone there. I got to highlight one of my favorite events of the year. That's the pumpkin drop. Number one, because I get to be on top of the roof. Number two, because our kids work so hard in creating like these really awesome designs. I mean, they really focus on the engineering designs, and our teachers do a really good job of instilling that from the beginning to the design process all the way until, you know, once they go through the experiment and at the end having that reflection process, we're asking questions about what worked, what didn't work, how can we improve, and so it's a really cool event. This year was also awesome because I think every single classroom was out there watching and supporting their first grade colleagues, and so that is a great way to build that positive community and within our building. So awesome to see. And then I'll also highlight our Growing Together night that we had. Just it seems like it was a couple weeks ago, I believe. But we were able to get the Children's Discovery Museum from Bloomington who came. They did just some really cool stuff. I don't know who had more fun, the kids or the dads, but one of the events was a Lego event where you got to build your own Lego car and have a ramp, and the goal was to see who could have their Lego car go the farthest, and I think the dads were working just as hard as any student was in there, you know, adding more weight, you know, thinking about the size, the length. I mean, it was really fun. So they got to do that. They got to do just a variety of really fun building activities. So that was really a cool night. I think that's it. Any questions?
Good evening. Just a little reflection on my first bit of time over at the Blue Ridge Intermediate Junior High School. You know, one of the things I felt tasked with pretty early on was trying to make some shifts in culture there, and I knew that a lot of that was on me as a instructional leader, but also a relationship leader, building those relationships with a staff that had kind of gone through some tough times, the pandemic included, and also with some students. A lot of our students struggling to make that transition back into the school. We continued daily to get more requests for 504 plans for students that need accommodations. We continue to get requests for evaluations for special education, and all of those things keep coming through, and those are very important things on how we serve our community and our students and our families. But it's hard work, but it's great work. And so we continue to move along. And as I was telling Dr. Stanifer, you know, as we reflect, I'm reflecting on some of the parts of this first part of the year. Driving home sometimes, I think, what are some of the things that, because of all the things that have happened, I didn't quite get to today that I've got to make sure. And it's not the great feeling, but at some point the day does end, right? And so, but the great thing is the next day is a new day. And so we carry on. Lots of good things too. The work that we're going to do around our targeted designation at the school, I think is going to give us a sense of purpose, and it's going to lift us up, and we're going to see increases in student achievement very quickly. It's going to be a process, but I really feel like I've got good people that I'm working with, and they're ready to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work. For my board report, last week we had parent-teacher conferences. It was so great to see families inside the building. I know we've been through a time where that has not happened over the last few years, but to see families in, to know that our parents and our teachers are making those connections about how their kids are doing in school and things that are going well and things that they need to see their kids growing in, and building those relationships again. I think it's a crucial part of what we do, and I've always, as a teacher and also as a administrator, I've always loved that part of the school year. We had our Veterans Day assembly. Coming from a place where that was a lot of times taken off of school, to get to have this really amazing ceremony that where we had people coming in from the community, we had staff helping out, we had our student council helping out. It was just a really great and uplifting time. It was our first time of having a whole school assembly for this year with all of our kids, and it was a really great opportunity for our kids to show their appreciation and show their respect. And I had great comments from the veterans from our VFW and our American Legion as they were leaving. They were very grateful and very appreciative. And I won't spend too much time talking on it because Dr. Stanifer already spoke about it, but teaming with our parent night coming up this Thursday, we're also having the STEM club from the high school come. And so they're going to be doing some activities with our students and have a little competitions. We're also working with each individual class and grade level so that there's a prize for the grade level that has the most attendees. So we're continuing to work to create that opportunity to invite the families into our school, because we know that as we want to increase student achievement, those relationships we build with families are going to be a key part of that.
Did you guys have a RSVP for tomorrow evening?
We did.
Have you had a good number of people signing up?
Yeah, we have just a little over 100.
Wow.
Right at 100 between students and parents.
That is great.
We're very excited.
Do you know by grade level yet?
I do, but I can't announce it yet. Next month.
Oh, killing me.
Yeah, we'll make those announcements next month. I'll let Ms. Trimble do that.
And the 10th, so technically no one.
Yeah.
You'll have lots of walk-ins at the door, I'm sure. Let's see, I'll start with just some comments about the board report first. Bert mentioned the Veterans Day Assembly. We had one of those here last week as well. Vonda Rogers is a Gold Star parent who had a son who was killed in Afghanistan a few years ago, and she goes around and gives talks, and she's phenomenal. So yeah, having some veterans in, having her come in. We had a freshman student sing the national anthem. She was great, and just it was a really neat service. The FFA talked about the reason why the flag is folded the way that it's folded. So some really great patriotic things, and the kids, as squirrely as they can be in the commons area before and after school and lunchtime and in the hallways and sometimes in classrooms, they were fantastic when our guests were here, just sitting in there, and I definitely complimented them on that. They were enthralled by Vonda's story again. So let's see, upcoming event. Saturday night, if you don't have a table yet, I know our FFA is having a trivia night, so there's probably still room. It's at the DeLand Legion, and you can get a hold of Jill Hardesty in the main office if you want to get a table for that. You won't be able to beat my team because my wife's on my team, and she's really, really competitive, so please don't come if you're planning on beating her. And so there's that. In the report, I did include some grade data breakdown. I realized in my haste, I was so excited to get my board report in early because I'm probably like one of the last ones to get it into Christy most weeks. And I thought, you know what? I'm getting this in Thursday morning. And then I realized I forgot to make any comments about the data. So I don't know if Kenna would have questions on it or Francie. I feel like this side of the table always has questions about the data. But one of the things that I reflect on is last year when I first started breaking that stuff down, our freshman students really were struggling to pass their classes during that first semester, and even through second semester. Some of that was coming out of pandemic stuff, but some of it is just a transition from where grades aren't as important and it didn't matter as much if you passed the class. And so we were trying to emphasize to our freshmen this year how important it is that it does matter. If you don't pass this class, you'll be back in freshman English again next year, and you'll be back in freshman math. And I think for them to be able to see some of the kids who are sophomores in class with them, I think that was also resounding as well. So I thought the data looked a lot better, and I'm encouraged by that as we head down the stretch here at the end of this semester. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it. As far as the state of the building, it's funny. When I think about the role of a building principal, I mean, I honestly, I thought of it as a 365 day a year, 7 days a week, 24-hour a day type of job. So anything less than that is gravy in my mind. But there are definitely times when I'd say it's more of an emotional toll at times because we care so much for our kids and we want them to all be successful, and then we see some of them struggling, and then the amount of time and energy that we have to pour into the kids who are struggling to figure things out can be very taxing. But I've grown to, in the past few weeks, have a lot of opportunities to work with our CARES team, which is our crisis team, because we've had some pretty significant things pop up, and just trying to really dive in and answer questions about what's best for this kid, what's best for this family, what's best for our building, and to try to sort those out. And a lot of times we have really limited options as far as what we can do, which is disheartening. But I'll also say, I think nationwide kids are struggling with a lot of social and emotional stuff, and we get to see it firsthand because we're in the trenches with them. And having Mary around a couple days a week, Mary Diener, to help run all my 504s. Bert's talking about all the new 504 plans that are being requested at the junior high. We get them, by the truckload at the high school too, and that definitely eats up a lot of time, and I'm so appreciative that she's able to handle a lot of that stuff. But on the plus side, I'll say last year I also spent a lot of time diving into these conversations and doing a lot of mediations with kids and teaching them how to problem solve and all that. And I didn't really, I definitely saw progress, but it didn't really hit me until this year when I see some of these kids walk in the halls this year, and I realize what they were like last year, and I see that change. And so it's all worth it. It's a lot of work, but they're figuring it out, and I have a lot of confidence in our staff that we're gonna come out shining once we get on the other side of all this. So, all right, questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Paige?
Hello, everyone. Being in the position that I'm in, I kind of have a unique view on what every day looks like in each of the different buildings. And I will tell you that the principals over here are being very modest. They do not sit down. If you want to go and visit them, don't plan on finding them in their office, because you will not find them there. They are out in classrooms, they're working with teachers, they're building those relationships with students, and what they're not telling you is the hours that they put in on the weekends and at night away from their family, working on evaluations, the things that you have to sit down and type and really think about, that they don't have time during the normal school day. It just doesn't allow it. Or the emails or the text threads that are going back and forth 7 days a week up until 10 o'clock whenever all of us decide to go to bed, maybe, or at least we quit bothering each other at that time. So they do an excellent job, and I can't even imagine the extra hours they put in. And like Brian alluded to, being a former principal, the emotional toll that I know that it can put on a person and their family is huge. I think we're really blessed to have these three in our district, so thank you. I did write down a few things. Yes, they deserve applause. I'm working on a lot of things right now, but I narrowed it down to 4 that I'm going to talk about briefly, because next month I'm going to talk about a few of these things in more detail. As long as I'm here, I'm currently on baby watch. So if I'm not here, that means I'm at the hospital. Not, obviously, for my daughter. So anyway, the first thing that I've been working on is, a couple years ago, we really started looking at the 7th through 12th grade ELA alignment. We've made really good progress. We're working on vertical maps right now with our teachers. And as I'm planning curriculum day, we're also going to start looking at the 7 through 12 math alignment, as well as 7 through 12 science alignment. So I'm setting up those collaborations to take place in January, as well as K through 12 art and K through 12 music. So those are really big projects, but they're really important. And I think we've seen the benefits with our ELA teachers. And I'm excited for that hard work to get started in the other subject areas. I won't spend a lot of time talking about our parent night tomorrow night, but I'm really pleased with the responses we've had from parents and the students who are coming, as well as staff members who have volunteered to stay and help us just make sure that everything's up and going for tomorrow night. So I'm excited to have final numbers for you next month. Dr. Stanifer and Bert talked a little bit about Mansfield being a targeted school, and so along with that, there will be another grant that I'll be working on for that campus, which is 1003A School Improvement. That sounds familiar because we had it with Ryan's building for the last 4 years, so we're just in the initial planning phases of that, starting to brainstorm of how we're going to use those funds. And then probably the thing that I'm most excited about, not this last strategic planning meeting, but the time before that. So maybe 10 years ago, I remember us sitting in this library and we were talking about, what are our goals? What do we want to see happen here at Blue Ridge? And one of the things I was really passionate about, and I heard a lot of parents, their passion as well, was how can we bring more dual credit opportunities to our students here at the high school? And so I've been working with the high school admin team, the counselors, a representative from Parkland, and I think we can possibly make this happen, and maybe even next school year. So next month I'll have a full presentation for you, and if I can't be here, Leslie is going to take the reins and she will present to you the courses that we're looking at offering are FYE 101, which stands for First Year Experience, and that is a 3-credit course that is designed to help students just succeed in college. It includes setting them up to know how to do self-assessments and goal setting and career planning, time management, study skills when they get to college. So that's one of the courses we're looking at. English 101 and English 102. And currently right now we do have a dual credit art appreciation class at the high school, but that's currently the only class that we do offer. So I'm really excited that possibly next year we're going to make this happen, I hope. So any questions?
I think so. Thank you, Paige. I'd like to say, too, on behalf of the board, that our administration team is a great team. From the superintendent down to the secretary in the unit office. You guys, a lot of people say, oh, it's just a job. It's not just a job for you guys. You've proven that to us. We go by this building, other buildings, we meet you on the roads, and we wonder why we meeting you on the road on Saturday. You're here because you have a compassion for your staff, you have a compassion for the students here, and I hope they feel it because we see it. And that will have a great impact upon the future of this district. And we want to thank you for that, okay? Moving on to, you had the other reports before you. I don't know if there's anything you'd need to add to those reports. Okay. Moving forward to the approval of consent items that you have in your packet. Need a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda items listed on attachment A as presented. Francie? Jason? Who was it? Oh, sorry. Yes. Going no old business, we're going to move into the new business. We have before us approval for application for school maintenance grant.
And that's a nice treat for us because typically those come from the state every 2 years, and we actually had one last year, so we were surprised to hear that the state was offering that again. It's a matching grant up to $50,000, so we were looking for projects that are that are hanging out there already that were about in the $100,000 range. So I worked with engineers from GHR, and they suggested that we work on more HVAC at the high school. We've completed the 2 summers of VAV box replacement. Right now, they'd like to replace some of the duct work for our HVAC, some of the insulation for that duct work, and also some of the insulation for the refrigerant piping. And all of this is up on the roof, things that just haven't been maintained over the last years, and it will give us a little bit more life to our machines. So again, it's on the HLS list. We're going to have the state pay for the first $50,000. The other $50,000 right now will have to come out of district budget until our HLS report gets approved, and then once it's approved, we could actually use HLS funds for it.
All right, did they ever get anybody appointed to that office yet?
They do have somebody, and the person is brand spanking new, so they like to ask a lot of questions. So it's taking our architectural firm a little bit of extra time to get those things answered.
With no further questions, we have need a motion and a second to approve Blue Ridge School District 18 to apply for the 2022 school maintenance grant as presented. Carlos? Francie? Yes. Approval of 5-hour week custodial position.
So right now, we haven't had anybody cleaning over in the bus barn, the old building, for quite some time, and that was unfortunate that we didn't have that happening. Now with the new transportation center, we want to make sure that we're doing things correctly. Larry Faircloth is a retired custodian here, and he does, through subbing, he takes care of the gym areas in the morning. He can't add more time because of his retirement restrictions, and we need to be taking care of our new building. So I would like to propose, instead of putting that onto the maintenance staff, that we add a 5-hour-a-week custodial position, which would allow for floor cleaning, bathroom cleanings, both in the new building, and restroom cleaning over in the bus barn, that's still used by our mechanic, as well as window cleaning. We're still a lot of gravel around the area, so the dirt that comes in is pretty significant.
If no questions, I need a motion and a second to approve the addition of a part-time 5-hour week custodial position as presented. So moved. Second. Jason this time? Yes. Consideration of substitute teachers' pay.
So last spring, we took our substitute teacher pay, I believe it was at 100, and we bumped it up to 120. You can see on the document on page 211 where we stand. Liz Raines, our sub-caller, updated these as of the beginning of November and called around to the other districts. It's not just one set rate for everybody. You'll see, like, for example, Monticello was 120, but after 25 days, they get a bonus. So there's a lot of ins and outs, but if you look through that list, you can kind of see where our 120 up at the top compares to everybody else. I will ask I think at least a couple of our principals have had some personal experience with subs in their buildings talking about the sub pay in comparison specifically to our neighbor, Mahomet Seymour. So I think Ryan and Brian, you might have a comment to add for that.
Yeah, I just overheard at least 2 subs that we utilize in our building who had mentioned about the 150 in Mahomet, and just, I mentioned that they would look at applying there as well because they're going to make $30 more a day. And that's all I have.
Similar, we had a sub that comes here often, but he said he ended up subbing for us 1 week, 3 or 4 days. But he said the following week, he said, I can't commit to you guys because Muhammad's calling me almost every day, and it's $30 more, and it's a mile from my house. He just said, like, I want to come, help you out as much as I can, but I can't commit to the stuff because he's been good about committing in advance. But I get it. I can't.
Yeah, thank you. Kenna was the one that actually asked me to put this on the board agenda because she had heard it from a community member who's one of our retirees that subs for us quite regularly, and the question had been asked repeatedly, what about our neighbor Muhammad? Now, when you have different situations when you're in Mahomet, yes, you're going to have classes that are probably 2, maybe 2.5 times as large. You could be in, a portable situation. You could be in a hallway situation. So yes, there are differences. I think that, changing the amount is going to make everything perfect and people are going to come here and not go elsewhere. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. So I think a lot of it's a little bit of a guessing game. But since it was here, when I heard Brian and Ryan both talking about it, I thought that would be worth your consideration. Things just rolling around in my head, I would say 130 would be kind of a little bit of a jump. If you look back here, I mean, you're looking at 150. We're not a Champaign. We're not an Urbana. We're not a Decatur. Those are all pretty high, and I understand why. Rantoul, 145. Do I think we need to be that high? No, we're a totally different situation than they are. We're not the lowest one by far. I think 130, that would match GCMS. That's a little bit of a nod, maybe answering some of the questions that the current subs have. I don't know that I'd feel comfortable above 130. When I first put this in the packet, you'll notice that I said I'm comfortable staying where we are, but I think $10 is not going to be a make or break. $10 could show our people who are questioning that we're listening to them.
I just have a quick question about whether or not our last raise on this showed us any more subs coming into the district.
That's a good question. I didn't ask Liz that specifically. I will say that I feel like we're kind of the same as we were before. We're short. There's multiple days. I don't know that Brian's in classrooms as much, but Paige is subbing, Bert is subbing, Ryan's subbing on a very regular basis. I don't know if you can give an estimate for how many classes you're covering a week, maybe 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. And we just have a people shortage too, so it's not, $10 isn't going to be the answer, just like 120 wasn't the answer. Could it be a nod if somebody's questioning between us and somebody else? Perhaps.
What's the pool number that we have that we draw from? Do we have a specific number of people that we actually have on file that we call?
I've seen it. It's not a very long list. And there's some that will say they only go to Snyder. Some will only work in Mansfield. Some will only work in high school. Some will only sub for paras or secretaries. So it might be a list of 15 to 20 names, but
Right.
it might be limited as far as what they can do.
And we also have to remember that we have Pam Hauser subbing full-time in 7th and 8th grade social studies. We have Judy Hahn, we have Jill Moak, who are subbing kind of together, making a full position, covering what Angela left here in title. So, that, right, we have somebody out on FMLA, so we have Nancy Ellison full-time. So it's a lot of our regulars that we could be using here and there are in specified positions long-term.
I would like to see us stay competitive so that they're able to fill in the positions that they need to. I'd just like to know more on whether or not that competitiveness is actually just, if it's real that $10 will make a difference, or if it's just that we're people poor, period. And if we could look at the numbers from before the raise till now, I just think that would help make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
yes, there's a people shortage, but we're also eating with everybody else for the people shortage. So
Mhm.
draw the line. The competition team, I don't know.
I don't,
I was asking for a number.
yeah, and I didn't bring specifics on what you're asking either, Jason, but I do believe that our sub pool is not significantly different because of the 120. We've also had a COVID impact too, and a lot of our subs are retired people, and they're not as willing to come in this kind of situation. So I think there's a lot of factors in there that make it kind of difficult to tease out what's the exact driving force.
Is that a question that we can put out to our sub pool? Asking them if that's something that would increase their, I mean, I know what the easy answer is, sure, if you're paying us more money, we'll come in more, but I didn't know if there was a way that we could put that question out to see if we could get some kind of realistic answer that would help us with that.
We could ask it. I'm not sure if the answer would help us, though. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
No, keep your money, please.
Yeah, no. I mean, you keep, when was the last time we did this? Just last year, wasn't it? So, I mean, if we're gonna increase it, I think we need to increase it more than just $10. So something, so we don't have to keep revisiting this all the time. So I mean, I would be happy with 135 or something like that even. You go up $15 a day. Surely, with our size of a district, that would be something I think if I was going to be subbing and thought, yeah, I'd like to go there. It helps pay for the extra gas to go another 10 miles. Food's good there in the cafeteria. Feed me good. We'll throw in some homemade cookies.
Watch it.
No, I think if we're going to do something, we need to do a little bit more than just $10. I know that's how you feel, but I feel like that's something we want you here to help us, and I think it'd be worth it, an investment. I just don't want to see our administrators having to spend their days in a classroom. Any other inputs on that?
I think that sounds good. I think it's also important if you want to make a motion surrounding that, to talk about the effective date as well.
Okay.
Which could be December 1, or could be January 1.
When's the semester over?
December 20, last day of school.
So like make it retroactive beginning of next semester or something?
You could do January 1, which actually I think kids probably come back on January 4th. Yeah.
So are we good with the 135? All right. So I need a motion and a second to approve an increase to the substitute teacher daily pay rate to $135 effective January 1st, 2023 as presented. Carlos? Rusty? Yes, thank you. And we're moving on to closed session. I need a motion, a second to move from open session to closed session for discussion of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district at 7:59 p.m. Jason, Rusty,